This is the part of our brain that's at the core of our thoughts and our beliefs, which create emotions that drive our behavior, whether good or bad. So if we truly want to overcome our bad habits, we need to reprogram this survival instinct with us. Okay, in my last video, I talked about a very unflattering truth, and that is that we all probably have unhealthy coping behaviors that are causing us to stagnate in our lives, preventing us from truly seeing the change that we want to see in our lives. And these coping behaviors do one primary thing, and that's to temporarily push unwanted thoughts, feelings, and emotions out of our conscious awareness. And so we fail to shed these coping behaviors because we're trying to address a symptom, not the actual root of the problem. The reality is that these behaviors are really a road to our woundedness that needs to be healed. Very few of us will actually be successful in changing who we are by simply controlling the behaviors. And really, I'm using the word behavior as a catch-all term. As I talked about in my last video, it could be almost anything that we're using to try to anesthetize our current reality. So it could be video games, it could be pornography, it could be eating, it could be social media, it could even be social aspects of relationships or friendships. So really the list can go on and on. Instead, to truly change our behavior and eliminate these bad habits, we need to change who we are. And that all starts with the limbic system that's in our head. So let's jump right in and see how this works. But first, let me give you an example of a healthy coping behavior, and that's to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel to get this content delivered directly to you and help push this content to more people who need to hear this truth to seek change this next year. Okay, diving back in. Did you know that us humans, we're the only creatures in the observable universe who will continue repeating destructive behaviors despite the negative consequences? Now, I wonder, why is that? In simple terms, we have two brains at work. We have our conscious brain and our we have two brains at work. We have our conscious brain and unconscious brain. Now, the conscious brain, that's the part that's in the front right here, that's cerebral cortex. But the unconscious brain, that's loosely called the limbic system, that's deep inside the center of our heads. Another name for the limbic system is the survival brain, because this is the part of the brain that's responsible for a lot of the automatic responses in our lives. It's the part of the brain that's involved with behavioral and emotional responses, especially around things that involve survival. So the fight or flight, food, sex, some of my favorite things. It's the part of our brain that's responsible for learning new ways to help us cope and survive. So our survival brain is concerned with one thing, and that's increase our chances for survival through adaptation. This is why it releases good chemicals with behaviors that increase our chance of survival, and it produces fear and other painful feelings to help us avoid things that will hurt our chances of survival. Unfortunately, our survival brain is programmed through experiences, not words. Its memories are emotional, not cognitive. It can and often does act independently from the conscious mind. It can even temporarily shut down our conscious mind and override our will, our emotions, or our responses. This helps to explain the first 12 steps in most of those 12-step programs that says that I'm powerless over my self-destructive behavior of food, alcohol, sex, drugs, etc. We're powerless to the things that we don't see, we can't control, or we don't understand. And so these unconscious, hidden dynamics include our reactions to fear, abandonment, grief, loss, anger, betrayal, basically being hurt. Our ability to change depends in many ways on our survival brain. And unfortunately, our survival brain's job is to keep us from taking risks that it associates with fear. Because fear is often associated with things that have hurt us in the past, thus we need to avoid them. But change involves risk, and risk is often associated with fear. There's a really good quote from Rick Warren that I love. It says, "Change comes from taking risks, and the greatest risk is to be honest with yourself and others." So this limbic system, the survival part of our brain, is really responsible for three things. It's food, sex, and shelter. And really, if you think about it, most coping behaviors or addictions can be nested within those three categories. For example, food and sex are a little more straightforward and easy to identify, but what about safety? See, most other addictive behaviors can be summed up into that category because they're attempting to temporarily reduce fear, pain, and stress, and thus making us feel safe, temporarily. So really, it's the limbic system that creates this focused craving for anything that it associates with survival. This limbic system, the survival brain, is part of what the Bible calls the heart. It's the center of our emotions and our beliefs. So this is the part of our brain that's at the core of our thoughts and our beliefs, which create emotions that drive our behavior, whether good or bad. So if we truly want to overcome our bad habits or our coping behaviors, we need to reprogram this survival instinct with us. It's what the Bible calls renewing our minds. Now, we reprogram our survival brains by healing the root of these subconscious behaviors, healing our responses and our actions to fear, pain, stress, and loss. And unfortunately, this is done in a process over time because our survival brain has attached itself to people, places, and things that it associates as essential for survival. So the process of change must be experiential, not just consuming more knowledge. It's never that quick. But if you change your heart, your behavior will follow. We can be successful in changing our hearts by healing and taking practical steps of faith and trust rather than trying to control the symptom, our behaviors. So wrapping up, for the first time in history, we humans are finally starting to understand what's truly broken. And we're starting to answer that question, why we do the things that we don't want to do. It's the survival part of our brain that's creating a focused craving for the habits or the patterns or the processes that it associates with safety and survival. Now, this doesn't absolve us in any way of blame or responsibility for our actions or our behaviors, because as I'll talk about in future videos, we have an amazing ability to reprogram this survival instinct within our brain. So yes, the operating of our limbic system is automatic, but we've created the script that it's using to operate off of. But for now, hopefully I've at least raised some awareness on where our focus and attention should be. And hopefully I've helped to at least answer a piece of the puzzle concerning why we do the things that we don't want to do. So again, smash that like button, comment down below, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel for more content when it becomes available. But for now, you're all stocked up. Love you guys. Until next time.